Welcome everyone to this second of the four-part series from Athena. And we're preparing ourselves for a summer conference that's a joint venture between the pedagogical section and the medical section in August of 2025. And we're focusing on the arc of becoming from pre-birth through birth and the first, second, and third years of life. So I'm very happy to welcome you at this second one. And I'd also like to encourage you, if you have funds available, to donate a little bit. That will help us cover our costs for the webinar. And also, I'd like to highlight our wonderful presenters. We have Anouk Tompot, who's in the Seattle area, and Andrea Price with Eurythmy, also usually from the Seattle area, but now she's in Germany, just now, joining us. Raven Garland from Iowa. And myself, I'm in snowy Western New York near Buffalo. So without further ado, let us begin.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm just looking for a moment at all these faces on the screen. Yeah, so we are not only the four of us who are presenting are all over the place, but so are you. And this morning when I was preparing, I was just trying to live into this moment in time that we live in, that we have this opportunity and also strangeness that we're all a little bit over the threshold. Like we are in different time zones, different places virtually, and yet we can communicate. So I think it's even more important to connect with yourself in the place and hold this imagination that we are connected to each other. So I want to do that in two ways. One, by just lighting a candle for us and bring a little bit of warmth. There we go. And the second thing I want to invite you in is the college imagination that Steiner gave to the Waldorf schools. So I want you to imagine that behind you are all the beings who know and love you, your lineage, that you can stand on, can lean into, while we are in this virtual reality trying to create kind of a basket, weave a basket together, or chalice for this conference, not webinar, sorry, which I is not a minor thing. I'm so grateful for the people who are really showed up in person right now. And of course, it's wonderful for the recording later that people can watch it too. But for now, we cannot really do a lot of work without real human beings here. So thank you. So if you can imagine behind you, your guardian angel and all the other beings who know and love you, that support you. And then if you look around on your screen and you see maybe this beautiful other human beings, imagine that behind them also is this long lineage of all those beings as well. So although we are here physically, there's this whole world behind each of us from different streams. And then between each of us are this lofty beings who try to weave, to give to another and receive to weave this basket or this chalice. And just know, by having it in your imagination and really know that this is a reality. And think for a moment how big this chalice is. We're all over, spread out in this etheric realm. We have this chalice. And I can only imagine that some of the spiritual beings, the loftiest ones, are just rejoicing right now that we are showing up to do this. So thank you. And hopefully they will drop in a little drop of light as an inspiration for this webinar. And I hope that drop of light will, for each of you, be a gift to bring forth your unique gifts into the world. So thank you all.
So please join me now for a little bit of movement together, and you can either look at the screen and we do it together, or you can look away from the screen and you will hear Raven speak a verse that we started with last time, and that will set the tone also for today's webinar. So you may get off your up and move with me, or move on your own to the rhythm of that verse.
Twofold are the forces in the human being. One set of forces streams inward. This gives you form and inner root of being. One stream of forces goes outward. This gives you well-being, fills you with light and life. If then the heavy body man, his forming forces weigh you down, picture yourself all buoyant, filled with light.
Thank you. So, wait a second. I have to do this. Here we go. Yeah. So I want to orient ourselves for a moment into this webinar series. And a way for me to do that is by really honoring 4 books that we have been using, and then also the human beings whose life's work this has been. And I hope you can see them next to me. So the first is Carl Koenig. The first 3 years of the child. The other one is Rudolf Steiner, Balance in Teaching, and of course his whole work. Then the first 7 years of Edmund Schorel. And then from Husemann, this wonderful book of music and embryology as well. And this particular lens that we want to bring is through embryology. And hopefully it will lift the veil a little bit for each of us to look at this first year, just after the child is coming out of the womb, and then the second year and the third year in the other webinars as well. So let's just go where we ended last time. So this is just a picture just before birth, where the child is still in the womb and completely embedded. You can't even really tell what is what. And what I mean by that is that the womb and the embryonic sac around it are partly coming from the child and also the mother. So they are completely connected. Then of course we have the baby itself, the physical body, but then also this mysterious other organ, the placenta and the umbilical cord, which also come from the baby and are left behind as soon as it is born, and same with the womb and the embryonic sacs. And those first 3 years, I think, are so precious, because in a way the child is not done yet. Although it comes out of the womb and has been giving all these beautiful gifts from the spiritual world by the deeds of the different beings, so the creator beings. Now we are, as human beings who are receiving this child as caregivers, are asked to stand in our humanity as a highest representation of that, so that this child can kind of stand into that, grow into that. And that's such a beautiful task, I think, and also such precious years that we can do so much healing still, because we are kind of asked as this 10th hierarchy of all the hierarchies of freedom and love to help bring this child into full human being. And as you all know, when a child doesn't have other human beings around them in this first 3 years, like for instance these stories of wolf children who were raised by wolves or so, they do not stand up, they do not learn to speak, and they do not learn to really have independent thoughts. So this is a major step. So just to orient ourselves for this years. Well, I said before that we will take this view of the embryo, what we did last time, because truly this embryonic picture is the kind of a modern creation story. And what I love about embryology is that we can see it. We don't have to believe anything. Our modern mind can come to rest in a way that it's just this open secret what's right there. So the egg, it is this one part of this force, is this mystery of this big roundness that keeps expanding, that keeps building substance, that goes from many to one egg per cycle, that is spherical and is released monthly. This is really this you can see it, what this one part of the polarity that we are dancing in between is about, this mystery of creation, so to speak. And then this other one of the spermness, this contraction, getting smaller into form, giving form from one to many, linear and continuous production. So again, to hold those images, this as a way of looking at the first, second, and third year developing children, is helpful, I think. But at the same time, it's also realizing that they belong together. It's a duality of a polarity that is inseparable, but it is not indistinguishable. You can find the signature of the one and the other. And here again is this beautiful dance that we saw when the sperm and egg come together, and that this true incarnation process starts to happen, and it's this endless dance of creation itself, and where life lives is again so archetypal here. So I want to kind of have that really in the back of our mind when we start looking into this first, second, and third year. Okay, so now birth, and then this within the first 7 years, the first 3 years. And again, I want to right now build a thread that we will just continue in the next webinars as well. So you have a little bit of a preview where it's going. So what I just said before is that the child is not done developing when it is born. You know, there's this other, especially in the first 3 years, other major gifts that come from the spiritual world, but that needs human beings to midwife it, so to speak, are also needing to happen. And the first one is this standing upright. And it's really the standing firmly on the earth, on your particular place. Where you stand, nobody else can stand, so to speak. And when this standing happens, then around 2, understanding of language can happen, which again is this deep mystery, what language actually is, that everything has a name, that we even recognize that a sound, the difference between a sound or a scribble and a word and language. So this other big gift. And then the third, the perceiving of thoughts. And I put those on purpose in a kind of ascending line. Because if you think about it, the standing is really on the earth, firmly here in 3 dimensions. This understanding of language is more living in the soul life, you could say, in the inner and the outer. It's how we communicate. It's how we are connected to our mother tongue. So it's a little bit more individual and more inward outward. And then we have this other third gift of the perceiving of thoughts, which lives even in another realm. And so these gifts then is something that comes kind of from the past, and now the child moves forward. So it's not just standing up that happens in this first year. It's also the moving, the walking. So it takes it up, and now it becomes not just a creature, but a creator, you could say. And the same for the understanding of language. And again, you can see those arcs. It takes a long time. It takes up till about 7 for the child to completely be able to be as nimble in the feet, and that it can jump and skip. So it's a long process, learning really to walk. Same with the understanding of language and the speaking, a long arc. The reading and writing goes all the way into this second septennial. And then the thinking, even a longer arc, to really have this ability to create, to have concepts and create a whole inner world and think independently. That I think is almost like a whole lifelong process. So again, let's now look at the first year. Now we have this orientation of how this is related. And so I made little drawings here to really see what happens in this first year. as gestures. I want to give you a moment to just look at that. And I know you've all seen it in real life, so you can even bring some memory to it of this, some of the children that you've seen in your life that go through this first year and through those phases as well. Well, one of the things, of course, that we know, and is another gift that comes from pre-birth and happens really when they are born, is this reflexes. So mostly when a child is born, they have this spontaneous, uncoordinated movements, but there are some movement patterns that are given. One very simple, the breathing and the blinking of the eyes, but then others as well. So we will go into that for very, very shortly, because there you can see often some signatures and that's where we can often help. We will not go in depth in it, but want to just touch on it. Okay, so we picked out a couple just to give you some ground to stand on. So the Moro reflex or the starter reflex, like this, which can sometimes, when it isn't integrated all the way, lead to hypersensitivity, poor impulse control, or sensory overload. The rooting reflex, that they just you touch them here and they know right away where to eat, where to go, can sometimes, if it's not integrated well, lead to fussing eating, thumb sucking, and articulation problems. The grasping reflex, difficulty with fine motor skills, messy handwriting. The fencing reflex, they turn to one side and automatically this part goes in and this part not. Postural issues, fidgeting, bedwetting, poor concentration, poor short-term memory. Gallant reflex, when you touch them on the back and they just respond in this way. Could, if it's not well integrated, show up as poor muscle tone, tendency to walk on the toes, and poor balance. This is another one, the crawling reflex. If it's not completely integrated, could lead to slumping while sitting, poor hand-eye coordination. And I just want to say there is way more on this, and we are far from experts on this, but we want to at least acknowledge that this is really a very important part of this first year, how to help these reflexes integrate. They're kind of like a survival gift and are very instinctual. So I want to give it over to Andrea, who will do something with that, what's out of eurythmy.
Thank you, Anouk. That was wonderful. Yeah, so today we want to look at some developmental steps through the lens of the vowels. Last time we looked at embryology through the lens of the evolutionary sequence, which are consonants, was a sequence of consonants. And today we will focus on the vowels. And that doesn't mean that all the consonants and the zodiacal forces behind them and the planetary forces behind the vowels are not working all the time in the developing child. But looking through the lens of the vowels helps us to see something working there, which we can even use then when we see a child is struggling with some residues of reflexes. We can use some vowel gestures then to address that in therapeutic eurythmy. And I would like to invite you to look back at your memory whenever you saw an infant lying in a crib, or you have children yourself right now or grandchildren, have a look at them, how they lie. And sometimes you can see something like that. Their arms up, lie there and sleep. And all of a sudden they might wake up and bring their hands down, and they come into the field of vision. And when they are very little, these are still strange things here, what they see, and they look at them with wonder, and already the eyes come into a contraction, expansion movement as well, and all of a sudden they find, the hands find each other, and it's a meeting there. You can just join me in this movement, in this exploration of coming from out there, and imagine this is sort of the first time you see that, and you meet yourself. Yeah, you meet yourself, you come to yourself. And that at other moments you might see that the children lie on their belly, hands like that, head on the side, and then they lengthen their neck. They lengthen and rotate and turn and look to the other side. And then they lengthen again and turn. Yeah? Imagine you're on your belly and you lengthen and turn. Yeah? And some of the vowels we have in eurythmy, they might resonate in there. Yeah? Another moment is when they reach for something. On the belly, they reach for something. They want to reach this toy or reach for their mom. Yeah. And then this embrace of the mother of the caregiver. This embrace and feeling and becoming one with the other. And then sometimes you can observe them in this parallel kick on the diaper changing table or something like that. Yeah, one kick or parallel kicks, and the vowels are all there, as you might have experienced even through those sort of odd movements. And I would like to invite you now to stand up and do the vowels while Raven will speak them for us, and we will move them.
Ah.
Thank you. Raven, we lost your voice at some point, but I think people were just joining into the movements. And this is not a recipe to treat residues of early reflexes per se, but I wanted to point out that we can see in those early movements the activity of the vowels, and it's up to a therapeutic eurythmist and a physician then to define what a baby would need. Yeah? And now I would like to hand it over to Maria.
Thank you, Andrea. So we wanted to take a look. We've been dealing in the ideal realm of pregnancy and birth. And as we all know, each individual then who comes into the world is bringing with them, you want to see it that way, past lives, past experiences, and is forming this instrument to be able to then go through this life here on earth. And I was very fortunate many years ago to be able to work with a baby and its mother. And I just want to tell you, I'd like to call the baby Jaylene, but I'll do a little spoiler alert here. But though this was not expected at all, Jaylene has grown into a middle schooler and is now Jay, has chosen to identify as non-binary. And so if I slip up here and there with Jay or Jaylene, please forgive me. So little baby Jay was born the third child. There were two older siblings, and dark reddish hair, dark eyes, and very pale skin, and born as a female, and immediately loved with great passion by the whole family. And there were also immediate challenges that were visible and could be experienced. And one is that the eyes were very fluid in their motion, which is usual by a newborn, but they would also tend to go inward. So after several months, it really was clear infantile strabismus was happening. And then in this region of the speech organs, there was a cleft soft palate, and this made nursing almost, impossible. And so the family was very engaged in making sure that baby Jay had breast milk from the mother. And this was a very intense and actually a huge process. After a time, it became clear that there was this polarity between a wide opening in the back, which is, usually closed, the back of the soft palate, and that all of the teeth then were extremely crowded, especially in the upper jaw. Going further down from the head, there was a weak muscle tone, and then a tendency when baby Jay was lying down, sometimes the airway would collapse, and they did develop asthma. And then going further down, we had a hip dysplasia, which is where the socket is. There's many different kinds, but there's this one where the socket was not fully formed yet and could not really invite the bone into it and really make a strong structure upon which the standing could progress. The feet, there was a pronation of the feet, so they were kind of fishy in a way, and that's something we also worked with. So all of that said, baby Jay was enchanting, is still, and was really diagnosed as a failure to thrive child and not expect to live much longer than the first year, if that. So luckily, with the work of an anthroposophic doctor who occasionally visits, we were able to put a plan together to help this process of the first year of, if there's any way we could to help further this prenatal process, like keep it going as much as we could to help with the sturdiness, the earth sturdiness, and possibly allow Jay to be able to stand. That was our thing. And then with the eyes, that we could help there be a healthy convergence. So I began, we also worked with an anthroposophic eye doctor and received help in that way. So there were a lot of many people just from our end that were blessed to be involved with this individual. So the first therapeutic eurythmy sessions we had, they did not last long. They were about 10 minutes. And baby Jay was approximately 6 months old, because there was so much risk about taking the baby outside, all these things. That was the first time we could really have a time together. So the first thing that we did, and I'm going to bring a little dolly here. This is, let's say this is baby Jay. And at first, I would just have baby Jay like this on the mother's lap. And I would be across from them. And we did hallelujah. And also, I would do a large B gesture around mother and child, bring it in a little bit closer, and then again, big. Little baby Jay, after the third session, would begin to move their arms a little bit, especially with the hallelujah, with the L's. And as we moved on to, I think it was the fourth session, then I would begin, Jay was able to be on my lap, and the mother would be right across so that they would be able to look at the mother. And I would first do just singing with the B. So I'm working with vowels and consonants. Bow, bow, oh Belinda, bow, bow, oh Belinda, bow, bow, oh Belinda, oh Belinda, darling. And then to help the eyes, which tended to go in, I would start along the head, coming into the field of vision with an ooh, and then let it widen to the ah. Ooh. Oh. At the most, I would do this 5 times, and I had to watch very carefully, and the mother was also watching to see how baby Jay would react. And I noticed if I did too much, they would become unquiet. And there was the sweet spot. So, and I also couldn't get too close. It was a big learning experience for all of us. And then for the legs, I'm going to just put down a little bit. These, the legs that the hip joints were then, there was a dysplasia, especially on one side, it was more turned out. And so I would begin where the situation was with ah, with the ah. And then I would bring it into the ooh. Starting with ah. And ooh. And at times in between, I would also just bring the book gesture large around, because this is what the hip joint, the socket, really needed. Now the little feet, they tended to kind of point forward, so they weren't really ready to accept being on the earth. So here I would use the consonants that would help bring out of a misformation, the L, bring it into form. So I would start with the L, and this is where I would actually touch the baby. She was very sensitive. So it took a while to be able to do this. L, L, and then M. We're working with the powers of Aquarius, the one zodiacal gesture that is in movement, walking very gently. And then at times I would also just put a bit of pressure on the soles of the feet with a sort of D movement. So aside from the L, we're working with the first three sounds of the evolutionary sequence. And I just wanted to show you with a little bit bigger baby J. So here, when Jade was a little bit older, they did end up having some surgery to correct the strabismus, though it had improved. They were able to stand and run around, but due to their vulnerability with the lungs, they weren't able to join school until they were in kindergarten. But everybody was just amazed that they were still with us and showing quite a fiery personality. So to help the eyes, prepare them, and then after surgery to confirm the new positioning that was given by the surgery, I again would use the U and also the M, starting in the back. And this we called saying hello to the tree fairies. So we would greet them, and then they would tell us different things about the different trees they lived in. And the child's hair was so long, it would go all the way down and touch the ground. Again, these were not long sessions. And lo and behold, little Jay grew up, got to touch many, many people in their beginning years as now, having lots of orthodontic work done. Teeth needed to be pulled. So we used the LO over, I mean, we're still working on it. And almost every year, Jay has a series of sessions of therapeutic eurythmy. And also in this whole area, along with the coming about of the identification, self-identification as non-binary, there and the difficulties of speech, we needed to work really with how can I express who I am. And I think we're probably right at time. I wanted to just, I worked with the mother on on this case description, and she thought this last sentence really summed it up, and she added a little bit. Though initially they were a failure to thrive baby, and early physical challenges caused great delays in movement development, Jay, a strong and fiery individual, is now a capable middle schooler, piano player, writer, puppeteer, and advocate for individuals with disabilities. So I think this can just make us over the moon excited about what therapeutic eurythmy can do and about these amazing individuals that are coming to be here with us. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. That is really touching how you brought that. I want to give people a moment to, if they want, to write down some insights, thoughts, reflections, and inspirations before we dive into the embryology and how we can maybe look then, that you brought so beautifully, the standing that uses the legs, but also then freeing the hands, and then this part here with the eyes that now can gaze, that we saw so nicely in this case study. So I want to give a couple minutes so you can write down some things. And I cannot really see where everybody is because I don't have an overview. So I hope, just let me know if you need a little longer or not. Do people need a little bit longer to, should I just continue?
It looks like a few people are writing still.
Okay, then thank you. Then I'm good. It's hard because I cannot see. I'm talking to the computer. So thank you.
Hey,
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Raven. Yeah. Good. Well, let's continue with the first year. Now we had a little bit of a glimpse into the reflexes, and again, there is so much more that can be done with that. But I hope that you might continue with this. One topic that we will not really touch are the senses. That, of course, also in the sensory integration play a big role, and then especially the sense of touch, life, movement, and balance. So I will not go into that, but I want to acknowledge that is not a huge topic and definitely a worthwhile lens to look into this first year. We want to really focus on this standing and walking, this gift of standing, what I just mentioned earlier, and then this how we take this gift of walking into the world and walking our path. Okay, let's start first with standing. So look for a moment at this picture, going just all the way from this on the belly laying baby to this 1-year-old, you could say, walking. And look at the position of the head. So first all the way on the ground, a little bit up, higher, higher, sitting, all the way to standing. Now, I cannot help seeing music in this. It is as if you see the child going up the ladder, the head, really all the way up, pushing away from the forces of the earth in this upright position. And of course, you need muscle control, you need different groups of muscles working together. It is overcoming of this reflexes, integration of that. And movement is just something that is asking in order for it to be coordinated and willed, that there is both an active stillness and an active willed moving. So it's always both. You can see that so beautifully, I think, just by looking at this, that there is this this polarity. Of the one hand, this stillness, and Steiner refers to that a lot, this importance of the stillness of the head, and then the movement of the legs, and then the freeing of the arms. That is one thing. And if you notice, it goes from below up, this standing up, this pushing away. Now the walking is actually a little bit different. So the moving forward. If you now look again at those pictures, you see that again his head is on the floor, but then by bringing the neck up, and actually first the eyes, first it's these eyes that even, but in the baby J, you could even see that so strongly. The eyes even are moving for a young child, even not together. So it takes first the eyes to get some focus, some movement pattern, that you can actually bring some stillness and focus. And then this neck, slowly here, and this sitting up, and finally then the leg. So that's a different order, from the gaze of the eyes, the grasp of the hand, and the step of the feet. You see, this goes from the top down. So that's one reason that I brought embryology in, because here you can see the signature of those two streams. One more spermness-like, bringing into form, and one more eggness-like, the other way, this expanding, this maturing gesture. So if you really start to look carefully in just the difference between standing and walking, you see a different signature there. Okay, so I want to go back to our modern creation myth again, what we can see so beautifully in the embryo. So what can we learn from the embryo? So I want to bring us back to the 6-week-old embryo. So it's still in the embryonic phase, and it kind of looks like this. And I want you to focus now on the legs, the arms, and the eyes. Because I think here we can start to see something that gives us some indications of what happens in this first year as well. So let's start with the feet, with the legs. If you look, the legs are kind of almost touching this umbilical cord, so it's around it. So in this moment of time, the 6-week-old, they cannot move by themselves yet. So they are growing their limbs, they're forming the eyes, but there is no muscle yet in that case, and bones that can actually move. But the legs are moved by the rhythm of this umbilical cord, which goes in the rhythm of the heartbeat of the mother. Isn't that amazing? So the legs are moved by the movement of the blood that goes through the umbilical cord, that is in harmony of resonating with the heartbeat of the mother. as an image, you know, as a picture, like a story. Now, if you now look at those hands, do you see how they are just resting on this big bulge here? And that's the heart and the liver of the developing heart and liver. And the heart of the baby is already moving. So you can imagine that his hands are going in the rhythm of its own heart. So a different movement rhythm. So the legs by the heartbeat and the changing heartbeat of the mother, you could say, and here by the baby itself. Now the eyes. If you look in this image, you don't see eyelids yet. So it's like this open wound, you could say. It's like the eyes are always open and it's touched directly by the amniotic fluid, what's around it. And can you imagine if you could never close your eyes? So you're always one with your environment, so the direct environment. And these eyes, of course, they don't look like limbs, but in a way they are. And I will show you a little bit more about it in the next coming slides of how it's developed. But here, just to hold this image, the legs again moved by the mother, the arms by this inner rhythm, and then the eyes touched, moved maybe even by this water that is in the surrounding, kind of going around it. Okay. Now let's look at how the eye is developed. So you have to imagine that in the beginning, of course, it's this kind of roundness. It's not a head yet, and then what you see here, I will come to that. So what you see here in this area here, the first image is the brain, and then when it starts to go out first to the side, is this like the brain starts kind of pushing out on both sides, like little arms, kind of growing out, till it reaches here. This, so you can imagine it goes out and it reaches then the skin, the outer skin. And the outer skin starts to respond, kind of moves inwards. And by this moving inwards, the brain is responding also. This is again this dance of those different streams. So you can almost say that this arm that is going out is grasping something. And the skin falls like a little drop of transparent, like a lens, like a transparent living crystal, you could say, going in. So here I think it is not so far reaching to see in the eyes something like a limb going out that you can grasp, you can just go out. So first it's kind of groping, but you see in the young child also, like, where am I in? Then this touching by the outer object, by your vision, when your eyes are able to focus together. And then this grasping, oh, I want to go there. Now let's look at the limbs, because here is again this mystery between what happens in the head and lower. There's always what Steiner points towards, this inversion. What happens in one way in the lower part is happening in the opposite way, or like turned inside out way in the other part. So here we see some images of the developing arm and the developing leg in time. So if you look at it, you first see this how to do that, little kind of arm, like a little hand sticking out here. So first it's like substance coming on, very much like this eye, but then now really growing out. Or is it growing in? That's kind of the question here. Eh? So there's like substance, and then you get this second part. And while this is happening, same here, there's also something forming. So when what is forming is something that happens from the inside the other way around. Like here, the nerves and the bones are starting to kind of respond. So it's a similar kind of weaving what we saw with the eye, that one or the other stream are meeting each other, and they work together like this very creative dance. So here we get this forming of the little fingers, the bones, while this substance is built here from the outside in. So almost opposite, if you could say that, from the eyes. So again, the substance building and then the giving of form. Okay. I think I want to stop here for a moment and hand it over to Andrea and Raven to just experience something so we can integrate those two things. Yeah, thank you.
Good. Thank you so much, Anouk, for leading us further into this mystery of standing up and walking. And Raven and I would like to invite you now to also stand up and move with us the scale again. Anouk put that so beautifully under that developing child from lying down to standing up. We will not follow that movement from lying down to standing up, but we will experience how the tones actually bring us into an alignment between the above and the below. And Raven, if you play a scale, and we start from above, because that is on one hand also this incarnating stream. The child comes in from the cosmos while it also grows up from the earth. Yeah, so we start with the scale from above to below and above again, and we end with the prime. So that's the first musical experience we want to engage with, and later we will also work with the intervals. You can either turn away from the screen so that you really hear the music from the back, which is an experience in itself, to hear the music from the back and then let your arms engage in whatever you hear as a pitch, or you can follow the movement gestures with me. Good. And next, we want to do the intervals, starting, I guide you through the anatomy of the intervals first, maybe without music, and then we do it with music. So the prime, for those who are not therapeutic eurythmists, is sounding in the collarbone. Yeah, that's the place where we experience the prime. From there, the second moves into the humerus, into the upper arms. They rotate a little bit with the second, and the third weaves in the lower arm. The ulna and the radius, they sound in the third, and the fourth is almost like it's related to the base of your hand, to those bones there in the base of the hand. They contract, and Steiner says you have to feel like a gnome. Yeah, it's sort of a contracted, jammed up situation there. And then we move into the fifth that builds a skin around you. Yeah, the skin is related to the fifth, and from there with the sixth we go beyond the skin, and then the seventh is almost as if we are in a kind of a nervous anticipation of the octave, and the octave is building a chalice and sounding sounding up there. Yeah, so let's do it now with music, Raven, please. And we start with the prime and move all the way to the octave, and then we go step from the octave without going back to the prime. We go down, down, down until we reach the fifth again. Yeah, and then we play the fifth, prime, fifth. So that will be the journey. Prime all the way up to the octave, coming down to the fifth, hearing the prime and coming back to the fifth. Let's do that together. Thank you. Take a moment to experience if you sense any after effect of that movement sequence. Thank you.
Yeah. So we want to kind of start to wrap up this exploration of this first year. And what I'm hoping is that you can start to get a sense through these different ways that we are bringing it, of this mystery of this standing up and walking that is happening in this first year, which I keep referring to as this first gift, the first gift to humanity from the spiritual world, to really lift us out, to lift us up, so we can become not just creatures, but creators. So I want to bring you to this image. So in the womb, you have this again, those streams of substance and form, and coming from way out of the cosmos, like formative gifts, and you can say they are connected, or like there's memories in the cosmos in the form of the zodiacal signs that are kind of streaming in. And then, like we saw in the beginning, when the baby was all the way in the womb still, that everything is one. When after birth you start to kind of come out and then come into this human world, and then hopefully you have humans around you, so you can step in that movement pattern of going upright. That's where the first gift is this freeing, or this coming out of those 12 forces that first were creating us, or to say it differently, those forces who are also related to the 12 senses, that we are not just only in it, like what I showed you of this little baby who's just moved by the feet, by the mother, moved by the heart, and the eyes always touched by the waters. There's no freedom in that. So there is something in this first gift, by going up, stretching, kind of almost like how Steiner gives this image of the head being spit out by the cosmos. So now that's kind of where our freedom is. So I just made this image to give you this image of the difference between being all the way in the womb, completely within all those creative forces, and now standing on the earth in those different realms, like the realm of the earth itself, this part which is more connected to what we saw, the rhythm of our own heart, our own soul. So standing on the earth, you could ask yourself, where is the rhythm of the mother? What is moving our feet? Where does movement come from? That's a big mystery. And then these arms that are partly expressing, but we also saw so beautifully in this case study that Maria brought about the child Jay. One moment really wanted to express also this part, and then his head being even further away, this quietness where these eyes were at one point touching the waters, and then the eyelids go over, so you can also sometimes go inward and outward, this blinking, this mystery of this mystery of what happens here, this gift that we can also step back, so to speak. Yeah. So again, within this being, you have this two streams that we kept talking about. This one hand growing down, it's kind of an emancipation process, very sperm-like, and then this waking up, you just what we saw happening over time, this much maturation process, or the egg-like process. You slowly start to grow into different worlds, the earthly and the soul realm, and then also the spiritual in the form of the thinking realm. So to say it differently, with some indication of Steiner, the limbs have to awaken the head, and the head has to form the limbs. And that all is happening in this, of course, it happens maybe our whole life, but it is really happening the first year by this standing up and then this walking. So I want to end with some images that come from Husemann's book, which I think are really helpful, and hopefully you could feel that also in that music that Andrea and Raven were bringing in relationship to eurythmy. So here you see next to me some modeling exercises that Steiner gave, and here you see this five different modeling coming from the roundness, you could say the egg, the all oneness, slowly coming into form in 5 different steps, the human form you can see. And on the other hand, he gave this modeling exercise, which is this other stream, you could say, again, but now 7 steps. Here starting with, again, this roundness, but now going in the other direction. And if you look at it, you end in a roundness again, but it is turned inside out. And you could just feel that when we were doing it with Andrea. Yeah, so those 2 ways of being. And here again, you could see it streaming in and streaming up. And I would say that, of course, we're trying to help the children and people that you might work with by how to have this balance in these 2 streams, so it becomes this creative dance. And that is I would say, this art of us feeling into in an artistic way and observing what's there, and remembering that, yeah, those streams are inseparable, but they are also distinguishable. You can see the signature of one and the other, and that's artistic feeling for it, and then the same time the artistic feeling for your medicine, you could say. Like, I'm a teacher, so for me it would be not so much the eurythmy gestures, but it would be more the things we offer in education. So whatever we're using, so can we recognize those artistic expressions that so beautifully are shown in embryology, I think, as a living modern creation myth, and then also in these eurythmy offerings, where you can feel that and see that resonating in another way. Can we use that as a way to sharpen our senses and also imagination, to just help some of those wonderful people that are coming into the world with those gifts that we just heard of from this beautiful case that Maria had shown us. So thank you so much. I think we have one more offering from Andrea and Raven. Andrea, we can't hear you.
Raven, how about some major and minor now at this point? I think it's very related to what Anouk said, and we might feel that those pictures she showed with this in-streaming and out-streaming really are carried by the music. So you can do it in sitting, that you listen to what Raven plays and let your limbs, let your arms just sing with it. You can also look away from the screen again and just feel free to engage what your arms want to follow.
I would like to play one more example of major and minor that will just be to listen to, unless you spontaneously would like to just expand and contract, or just really feel the streams that are going out and then the streams that are coming in. You can think of that picture that Anouk showed. Let's see, I think it was the red one. No, it was the blue one. I don't remember which one, where all the arrows were going out, except for one that was coming in. And then all the arrows were going in, except for one that was going out. So with the major, you can think out, out, out. And then with the minor, coming in.
Yeah, thank you. We planned to end with something else, but I thought it was a really, the pictures really called for that experience. I think that was okay. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Well, I want to really thank all of you for just being a little pillar of our container that we just can, that something could come in. I think it's really, it's one thing to just, I'm glad it's recorded as well, that it will be a gift for others, I hope, to get some inspiration, but it could not happen with you showing up. So I'm really, really grateful for that. Because again, I really feel what we are doing here is, we are over the threshold, aren't we? And we are just really, really leaning into finding ground in a very special way. So deep, deep gratitude, honestly. Before we close, I want to make sure that if there's questions, it is a moment if we want to have some conversation. So I will leave the candle still on. So I want to open the floor.
I had a question. And, it could be, anybody, any of you can just chime in, but, we often say about the reflexes being integrated or the senses being integrated. And what does that look like? When does it happen? How does it happen? And how does it not happen? What are we really saying when we say they need to be integrated? Go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah. I think that the reflexes are a gift from the angels, survival gift for the first month and sometimes years. And the more the ego comes in and works through those different streams that we were talking about, it's all activity of the ego from different angles. And the more that comes in, the more the individuality gets a hold of its own survival. And that, I would say, is an integration of the reflexes. Yeah, when it's not necessary anymore that you go into this, but that you have found your middle, for example, and you established your middle. And then you are free to do this or not. If you're not free to go into the asymmetrical tonic neck reflex, then you have difficulties writing. And then we can help those children by offering asymmetrical things, but coming into symmetry, coming to themselves, and with some exercises. Yeah. So the ego that is engaging gets assistance then. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. Can I say something very practical too, Andrea? And Raven, is that children aren't moving as much. I know when I did a presentation with the kindergarten parents here, I said, raise your hand if your children walk to school. One hand, right? And when I was living in Chicago, there was this nanny culture in my neighborhood, and children who are perfectly capable of walking were in strollers and being pushed. And you saw it everywhere, that the children were being pushed instead of walking. And so just letting them walk and run and play and climb and go to the playground and climb is so, so important. And I hope parents realize that, because a lot of these reflex states, just because the children are so inhibited in their movement, then they have fear and they have anxiety, and all these things come up then too.
I totally agree, Mary, and I think it starts even earlier with those car seats
Right.
that allow a field of vision that the child is not ready for. If the children are on the floor and have floor time and actually exercise their sense of balance and go into rotation, they have to work to come into uprightness. If they
Right.
This is already a little bit of a couch potato education to put them in those seats, so and allow them a different field of vision. It's not said that they cannot be there at all, but it's too one-sided in our time.
Right. At the Lifeways people, the Waldorf early childhood, they have what they call baby corrals, so that they're on the floor in a protected area, and they give them a ton of attention when they're diapering, one-on-one, 100% attention, and then into the baby corral where they can be ignored.
Yeah.
And that being free, that liberation of being free from the adult, where they can crawl around, is so important. And I think a lot of parents aren't really totally aware of that. But it's a wonderful thing that they can have a time to be ignored and just be themselves. Again, that's an expansion contraction kind of thing. I give you all of my attention and love, and now I let you be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a really big charter Waldorf school in Utah. And
Yeah.
Robin Brown was mentoring a lot of the teachers there. And by the time I left, the whole school, every single class, which there were double and triple tracks of every grade, they were out, they walked, they did a walk and then a run and then a walk and then a run.
And a roll, didn't they roll too?
Sometimes they would, every class was doing the walk and the And it was done silently, you know, like the teachers would send them off one at a time, then the next one and the next one. And they would start their day that way because especially, well, I mean, really everywhere, most of these kids, there were maybe out of 700, over 700 children, there were about 3 or 4 that walked to
To
school.
school. Right, and walking to school, you balance on things, you run your fingers along fences and get all of your sense impressions and all your different movements. I mean, I have a great granddaughter and I walk with her, and anything that you could stand on or balance on or, walk on an edge, it's natural because that's how they do it. They want to be balanced, they want to be whole, they want to be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I had one,
We inhibit them.
Anouk, I was interested in the quote that you brought and wonder where it came from, but the one that says that the limbs have to awaken the head and the head has to form the limbs.
Yeah, I've been trying to really find it, but I cannot really find it. Is from a second hand. So this is in the Schorel book. So he just says that this is one of the things that Steiner brought, but he doesn't really make a reference. So it's one of those mysteries a little bit. But it really was touching to me when I saw that. I was like, yeah, there is this. Of course, we work with it a lot, but it was so pictorial for me. To what does that mean? And it has a little bit to do what we're bringing here right now with those questions about walking to school. Now, this walking, this incarnating, moving forward, this getting a grip of yourself, this independence. That's really that stream of the sperm becoming more and more independent, falling into form. And then, so what will happen to a whole society if that is not really allowed properly? In a balanced way, this becoming independent, or the other way, this maturing. What happens when the maturing is not balanced? And I think both are under threat in a way. That's so how to help this natural dance again. Yeah, for me is a question. Yeah, so that's where it is. But I if someone can track it, great. Yeah.
Could I say something more about the reflexes and then I won't talk again? Is under stress or trauma, the reflexes reappear.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was living in Chicago, I got back surgery. Lo and behold, I got primitive reflexes back. And I was so surprised. But it makes total sense when you think of stress and anxiety, also in childhood. The moral reflex, it was unbelievable how that came back. So, I recovered, but it was a really big wake-up call for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can see it in a couple of. I had a client recently, and I did a copper rod exercise with her, and you could see that she was either on or off. So that was pretty much. It reminded me so much on that moral reflex, that kind of thing. So this contraction expansion was not a fluid thing, but on or off. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is really. We have to be really, really slow and careful here. And so I think eurythmy has such a gift to address these things, because we can even pick up the people where they have reflexes and guide them into more conscious and guided movements, inwardly guided movements. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Andrea, I wonder, would it be fair to say that what we're doing there is that we are picking up those things that normally would happen in the womb? Like I was thinking about Maria too, like there's those gifts, and we then repeat them or strengthen them here on the earth again. We kind of recapitulate something. That for me, that is such an image of that.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. We work with the growing forces. That's true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Well, I don't want to keep people over time, but unless there's maybe one last comment. So thank you again for showing up. Honestly, if nobody would show up, it would be harder. So thank you for this troop here. And I want to also just add one more thing. I think it's Andrea, Rave, and I, and also Maria this time, but I think we are doing something new by working so close together. So we have been weeks and weeks preparing for this, trying to become a fellowship, and then try by this riddle of what is this first year. And so I just want to speak that. And then on top of that, this new way of being online. So I feel like this might be something that wants to come. And it has been a humongous joy for me to work this way. So I want to thank my dear colleagues. It's such a gift.
Thank you, Anouk. You bring definitely you bring this development in a way through a lens that we are not so used to. We look through the senses, we look through the reflexes, and looking through that thread of embryology is certainly a wonderful journey for me to be part of. Thank you so much to take us along. Mm-hmm.
Thank you all for
Yes.
working
Thank
together.
you very much. This is wonderful.
Thank
Good. I'm
you.
going to blow out the candle and thank all the beings that I know poured some drops in our beautiful little basket or chalice. So thank you.
Bye.
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 Buddy. So we have one person just joining now. I think we have another one that is confused about time zones. So Chris, I'm pretty sure that's you. If you can hear me, you missed it, but there'll be a recording very soon, and I will make sure you get it.
Good.
Thank you again so much. Really, I think it's so
Oh.
true. You say, I think Steiner says somewhere that we actually are meant to work collaboratively. Like that was like what he
I
said.
really feel that, and the joy of that, so
Mhm.
much more is coming. So, and then also the participants
Mhm.
showing up. There's this gift of that as well. So yeah, well, up for the next one. Okay, see you soon. Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye.